The day that I got fired from my general manager job, making $50,000, $40,000 a month, I was so high that I didn't care. In fact, when I got fired, I remember I was like smiling the whole time, kind of like laughing, a little bit in disbelief, but I was so high that I did not care at all. And that is one of the sickness sides of what addiction's really like. If you're new to the channel, hit the like and subscribe button. That day was like any normal day. I mean, I didn't care about my job. I didn't care about my relationship. I didn't care about anything. And I remember that day stopping every single day. I would get a case of 99 bananas and I would start doing the shooters on the way to work. And I'd have two sugar-free Red Bulls, 20 ounces, two packs of cigarettes. I'd be smoking, doing my shooters, drinking on the way to work, getting into the garage, doing lines of Coke in my truck. And I remember going inside to just put on a normal manager's meeting, sales meeting. But something was kind of off that day. I remember some of the salesmen that later on it turned out had kind of like ratted me out, whatever, don't care. Were a little bit like weird with me that day, a little distant. And it was, people were typically never as distant as they were with me. And, I didn't care. Like I knew something was off and something was wrong, but I was so big into medicating myself and like sticking to my, like, constantly drinking. And it was about 11 o'clock and I had already started doing some lines in the bathroom. I was drinking again. I would start drinking just the whole day through. And I remember seeing our HR guy come downstairs and they had these glass offices. And I see him going in and they call in a couple of the other managers. And I remember like, oh God, they're not calling me in, but they're calling in a couple of the other managers and they're all kind of having this little talk. I end up leaving and going to the bathroom. I remember going into the bathroom and hearing my name called over the paging system. And I end up doing a couple lines in the bathroom. I just take a couple deep breaths and I walk in and they look at me and they're like, hey, we're going to have to let you go. The company is going to go a different direction. And that's what you pretty much, that was the generic thing that they always said whenever they fired somebody. And I was like, you're firing me. And they're like, we're going a different direction. And just started laughing. Like I did not care. All I cared about was like my final check. I remember grabbing it, opening it, and making sure it was there. And knowing that, I'm gonna go get drunk. I'm gonna go just to the wall today, man, because I was always the victim. My addiction thrived off of being the victim, the poor me, the poor Eeyore. So I remember I walked out of the office. I went and told my wife that I was fired, and she was just like, what? And I was like, I can't talk about it. I have to leave. I went and talked to the receptionist. I remember like I felt up her skirt and stuff, and I was like, hey, I want to, mess around with you tonight. Not really caring. Like I really didn't care about any of this, and walked up to my vehicle and ended up driving, drinking on the way home, hitting up my plug, and it was like, poor me, poor me. I hit up some people. I was like, you wouldn't believe what they did, because I was the victim. I was always the victim when I was an addict. Nothing was ever my fault. And that was one of the sick sides of my addiction. And I think with a lot of us who are addicts is we are so sick that we don't believe anything is our fault. I remember I got home and my wife's cousin who lived with us was there, and we end up just hooking up, and I'm just having sex with her. I get more blow and I'm doing more blow and I'm drinking and she's drinking and we're just having more sex. And that was all I cared about. I didn't care the fact that I just lost this amazing job. I just lost this huge income. I didn't care because like I felt like I was almost protected with my addiction. And it was weird how I almost was. It wasn't for until about a week later that I actually got sober. But I remember I had reached out to a couple like dealerships and stuff in between of like smoking cigarettes and hooking up, messaging them. And next thing you know, I ended up getting job interviews because I was really good at what I did, even though I was such an unbelievable, like, functioning addict. But the scary part was I was so good at what I did, still screwed up, that people knew me screwed up, not sober. Like, if I went to work sober, people didn't recognize or understand. Like, they thought something was wrong with me. If I went there messed up, jacked up on something, it was like, oh, that's how I normally am. He's out there. He's not all there almost. But that weirdness and sanity creates a lot of deals, does a good job managing all of that. And that was the worst part ever, is like my career enabled me to be a functioning addict. And it was sad. That's how insanely sick I was, is that I didn't care that I was ruining my family. I didn't care that I was hurting my wife. I didn't care about any of that at all. And that is where we go with addiction and how sick we get. And I will say this, that thankfully about a week later, I ended up hitting rock bottom. And I hated my life. And I wanted it to stop. And that's why I share as much as I do, is because I think that the more that we share, the more that other people understand that they're not alone, and maybe get that wake up call that they need to go, maybe I need to try this sober thing out. If you haven't hit the like and subscribe button, hit the like and subscribe button, comment down below, because I am a firm believer in the more that we share, the more that we understand, the more that it helps families out there realize, like, hey, this is what addiction is. If you have a family member that's an addict, people who are sober can share their stories, because that's what it's about, man, is sharing your stories, knowing that you're not alone, and then finding your way. Because that's the thing that's also difficult to understand, is there's no right or wrong way to get sober. And we all get sober different ways. Like the way that I got sober is different than how other people get sober, and vice versa. And it's finding it, inpatient rehab, outpatient rehab, treatment centers, NA, AA, what variety of stuff works for you. I even have links down below to NA and AA. I also have links down below to the Banff Wellness and Recovery if you're going through withdrawals and you need some help with that. Because that's what it's about, man, is not going through it alone. Knowing that you can do this, knowing that it does get better, knowing that, I will say this, almost 7 years sober, I love my life. My life is unbelievable compared to what it used to be, and I would not trade it for the world. And so for the one that's out there going through it right now, I am proud of you. Don't give up. It's one day at a time, and just keep going at it.